No, he didn't give me any advice. Prince Harry did as I was about to go on stage.
What did he say?
Go for it.
I've never had anybody who ended up in a cocaine-fuelled 12-some.
Well, actually, it was 9, and then 3 turned up later when we were asleep. It would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
Jim Davidson.
Yes.
What a life
Yeah,
you've
it's not
led.
bad.
I mean, an extraordinary life in many ways. You were the biggest star on television in this country for a number of years. You were one of the most scandalous and most talked about stars as well.
Yeah.
It was never quiet with Jim Davidson.
No.
When you look back over everything that's happened to you, would you go back and try and have an easier life?
Would I change it? I wouldn't have my children if I changed it. If I changed the whole timeline, it's too complex, and I tend not to look back. I tend to think, OK, let's move on now. Let's do as well as I can, starting from now.
5 marriages, a string of different kinds of addictions, chaos, drugs, guns. I mean, there was nothing left in the locker, was there, with you?
Well, you ask why I don't look back. No, the locker's full, you know?
Of all the drugs that you dabble with over the years, is fame one of the most corrosive, one of the most difficult to deal with, do you think?
Well, not for me, because I didn't really bother the wake. I didn't look back at the wake I was causing. I think you just get very famous. It goes to your head a little bit, and lots of money, and you think, I can do what I want. I mean, within reason, without any consequence. You seem to think it's going to last forever. And, of course, it doesn't.
Well, one person who's always found you hilarious and who's actually, oddly, one of your friends is Prince Charles, our future king.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
It's true, though.
He makes me laugh.
I was told that when you went to Highgrove, they unpacked all your bags and you didn't realise that was going to happen. And it was slightly awkward when they got to your wash bag because you found everything laid out and it included something that perhaps you didn't want royal eyes to see.
Well, I can't quite remember that, Piers.
Well, let me remind you, it was emergency condoms.
Do you know what? I don't think that is quite true. This is fake news. This is fake news, because they don't have emergency... I always hated condoms, so in case they're too big.
So just to
and they roll down like a football sock. I mean, you can't tie it up with the lace and stick a shin pad down the front.
So, to be clear, whoever perpetrated this fake news about the emergency condoms at Highgrove is probably just a deeply untrustworthy journalist. I mean, who would have done that?
I couldn't comment, but I believe it was fake news.
Right. It came from your book, Jim.
Oh, did it?
Your autobiography, Jim. Your story, written apparently by you. You performed at the Beaufort Hunt, I think, didn't you, on that occasion? When you do that, did Charles give you any advice about, you know, the kind of humour he wanted? Do you worry that...
No, he didn't give me any advice. Prince Harry did as I was about to go on stage.
What did he say?
Go for it.
Jim, you've been in show business for over 40 years, and it's been a roller coaster ride. How close, do you think, did you come to dying?
Nowhere near it. Not really.
You don't think?
No.
Your family clearly thought you were in a horrendous state. 4-day binges. That is going to kill you, isn't it?
We didn't do the Rolling Stones
whether you
a lot
thought
of
it was. Well, no,
you know, and that's what I'm thinking. So this is the norm.
But rock and roll and television is littered with the graves of people that went too far doing that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I had to put the brakes on. I didn't know how to. I used to drink to get myself to go on stage. And then I found out, really, the stage fright was because I was hungover. And so the drink was make me feel better to go on. And I went to see some trick cyclist, and he said to me, the problem is with you, Jim, he said, you use alcohol as medicine. To go to sleep, to wake up, to go on stage, to be funny, and also to give you energy, because I'd eat very little. And so it became a bit of a mess, really. I remember crawling up the stairs to Tracy, and I did say to her, unless you get me help tonight, I'm going to die. And she called her friend, who was a doctor, and I went into the drinks clinic.
At your peak, your worst, whatever you want to call it, what would you drink in a day?
I'd go to the pub lunchtime sometimes. I was bored. Before I'd go on stage, I'd have, you know, white wine and soda, a couple of them, and then large brandy when I went on. 10 minutes in, large brandy. Then, oh, that's maybe thirsty, glass of wine. So I'd probably drink 4 or 5 large brandies while I was on stage. Tended not to eat. Stay in a hotel and just keep working and working and working. And the fact that I was earning, you know, £250,000 a week tended to push the symptoms of being able to have that money to one side, and that included family to an extent.
When you hear one of your sons saying, you know, thought maybe Dad had gone to heaven.
Yeah.
Actually, you'd gone to rehab to get fixed up. But that must be, in all ways, a sobering thing, is it?
It's more than sobering, it's heartbreaking. But it's circumstances.
Do you regret it when you hear a son, a child of yours say that?
I wish it could have been different, but then other things would have been different. And in the end, I'm still here.
You were a drug dealer in your teens.
Well, let's get that right. I was the one they sent to get the pills out of a gang of both, because I wasn't frightened of all these gangsters and people. It was only amphetamine, but I couldn't take 2 or 3, hundreds of them.
Well, in your book, you said that sometimes you take 250
Yeah, a weekend, yeah.
pills in a weekend.
Yeah, horrible,
I mean, that's just
madness.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, 4 would have done.
How did that not kill you? Some guests I've interviewed have been, you know, players when it comes to the ladies and have had maybe a threesome. Some have even gone as far as a foursome. I've never had anybody who ended up in a cocaine-fuelled 12-some.
Well, actually, it was 9, and then 3 turned up later when we were asleep.
Is this true? I mean,
Yeah.
did you actually have sex with 12 women in one night?
Well, you... Yeah. 9.
And they weren't there because they loved you. They were there because...
They were paid for. They were
Yeah.
women of horizontal refreshment. That's shocking, isn't it?
Given I'm never going to be able to ask anybody else this question, what was it like?
Well, the first 4 or 5 were all right. My mate, whose name, the rest of him will remain nameless, he ordered all these women, and because it was my money he was spending, he ordered 9 girls to turn up, which he thought was a hoot, but they all turned up at once at this really posh little boutique hotel in Kensington. And the phone rang, Mr. Davidson, there's 9 women downstairs for you. My mate, he said, leave it to me. And he picked up and he said, that is the hockey team that Mr. Davidson is meeting for photographs. And they all had nails and sort of fishnets and whips and... There's some hockey team that was.
I mean, Jim, your sons are sitting here listening to this,
I couldn't invite them, they were too young then.
Your wife's sitting here. You have no sense of decorum about boasting about 12-somes?
No, and I hope they have one and all. Yeah. Good luck, boys.
You were born James Cameron Davidson in Kidbrooke, South East London, in 1953. Your mum, Emily, was Irish. Your dad, John, was a Glaswegian in the Royal Artillery. And your 4 older siblings. You were the youngest of 5 kids.
Yeah.
When your dad first saw you, did he know what he did?
Well, my mum told me this later, that he threw a bottle of scotch on the bed and said, give the little bastard a drink from me.
How would you describe your mum?
She was always trying to make us all feel that we were a little bit better, that we were better off than we actually were. She used to say stupid things. She had a Cockney accent, but she was born in Cork. And she'd say 2/3 of the world don't know what the other half are talking about. Should have got on my feet and worshipped her every day. She was a nice woman.
What was your dad like, by contrast?
Dad was tough Glaswegian, drank too much. Just drank too much. Dad would say to my mother, which meant, can you go and get me a bottle of scotch? So he'd give her a £5, she'd go up the off-licence, she'd get a bottle of scotch, and she'd pour half of it in a milk bottle, top it up with water, and that would be his drink, so he wouldn't get too drunk and horrible and make himself ill. Then on the Thursday, when that had gone, he'd get me another bottle of scotch, and so she'd go up to the milk bottle and pour that bit back in, more water, and so she made a £5 a week profit. But me and Billy sussed this out, and because I was quite famous and rich, I used to bring home these bottles of single malt with Dad, and he'd get absolutely drunk, and he'd say, God, I've got a 4 up, there's other whiskey, tell her it's shake.
There was a complicated situation in your family, and we might never find out the truth, but it is fascinating. You had your Uncle Bill, who lived with you. Now, tell me about Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill was a mad Scotsman. All I can remember of Uncle Bill was a beautiful watercolour of my first birthday, and he signed it, Our Boo.
We've got a picture of it, actually.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be dipped in shit.
And you see the signature on the right there, and it says Abu. Now, you weren't sure what Abu meant.
Well, Uncle Bill, when I was about 1, he just left. He went off and went to Thailand and died. Years later,
None of you ever heard
from
from him again?
No. And so I phoned up my cousin in Glasgow, and he said, well, he wrote a letter saying, I've gone up to the Thai-Burmese border. They don't speak Thai here. I've had to get by in Arabic. And I said, Uncle Bill could speak Arabic. Yeah, he could speak 6 languages. What? Arabic for father is Abu. So I asked Mum if he was my dad. Not a wise thing to do.
How did she react?
She said Uncle Bill couldn't have children. So that was the end of that. The end. And then you whiz forward 10 years, I was at the Pavilion Theatre in Glasgow. I got a knock at the door, and it was Uncle Bill's daughter. She wanted to try and fathom out why her father left her family to come and live with our family, and then went off to Thailand and drank himself to death. I didn't think it was right to ask my mother any more about it.
And do you think your father, the man you thought was your father, do you think he knew about all this? I mean, this guy's living in the house.
Give the bastard a drink for me. If he did know, it would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
And you may never know the answer, right? You might never know, actually, who your father was.
I know, I think. It all depends what mood I'm in, how I want to tell myself how I'm going to be today. I'm Uncle Bill's son or I'm Dad's son. All I know is that there's a lot of Scottish blood flowing around here. And I blame that for all the trouble.
Somehow, you've managed to rear these great kids who talk very lovingly about you and seem to be incredibly forgiving.
That's great, isn't it?
It must make you feel good.
Yeah, because you've got to look after the kids. They're going to pick which home I'm going to go in.
In terms of your kids, though, I mean, would it be unfair to say that for large parts of their young lives you were a pretty useless, absentee father?
I had to go out and pay for what was quite an expensive lifestyle.
But isn't it a bit of an excuse?
It was an excuse that suited me.
Right, that's what I mean. Quite a selfish excuse. If you take, say, your first child, Sarah, I mean, there were a very long period of time in her young life where you just didn't see her at all. That was your choice.
I still paid, I still did the stuff, and still took her to, you know, holiday on Concorde and stuff.
That's what being a father is, Jim.
Well, that's what I did.
Well, let's go through your marriages. So you were 17 when you married Sue, so ridiculously young, really.
Yeah.
Do you think that ultimately that was it, really? It was just youth?
I wanted to leave home. And this was my ticket out, a wife and a child living somewhere. So I projected in my mind this would be the way forward. It turned out not to be.
How long did it last?
About 5 months.
And then what?
That was it.
Well, how did it end?
It ended up with just drifting away.
Did she do the right thing, do you think?
Yeah. I couldn't wait to become famous and drive past her house in a Bentley.
And did you do that?
Yeah. Bib the Ooter as well, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. And then I'd stop and say, come and have a ride round, like as if to say, see what you missed. Didn't bother her at all. Anyway, so off I ran off with Julie, who was a party girl. She was great fun. We had Cameron. I bought this great big house up in Wentworth, and Julie was great fun. She was a good housekeeper. When we split up, she kept that house. And,
wife number 3 was probably the least successful. of your
dreadfully
marriages,
unsuccessful.
the TV presenter Alison Holloway. In an interview afterwards, she said that you beat her up, threw her down the stairs,
Yeah.
you had violent mood swings, pulled her out of the car, gave her 2 black eyes, forced her to have an abortion, drove her to contemplate suicide. But it was an abusive marriage for the short period it lasted. Would you describe it?
Volatile. What's the point of me trying to put the record straight?
Well, because
she's not here to answer. I
get
know
that.
what she's going to say.
I guess the point is, as part of your life story, this is your chance to directly tackle the charge that you were, in that marriage, a wife beater, as many people think you were.
Well, I don't think trial by television is the way forward. Everybody that knew us and her understands, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. It was awful and horrible, and I still get accused of being that by people who don't like me.
Your 4th wife was Tracy.
It's interesting, because I said to Kev, who's here with me, right, no more women, no more stuff, nothing, that's it, we're done. We're going to buy a big new super yacht and live on that. So I went to Southampton and bought a 55-foot boat and went to the Guinness stand to celebrate. I ordered 2 pints of Guinness and I looked up into the eyes of Tracy Hilton and I said, you are going to be my next wife. And she became my next wife. So those 2 pints of Guinness we worked out cost 17 million quid each.
Hard to imagine, actually, many things worse than in the wake of the Jimmy Savile scandal, Operation Nutri. Everyone was about sex from underage people. And here you are, suddenly you are called at an airport and you're told, we need to talk to you as part of Operation Nutri. What was that moment like for you?
The policeman came, took me to Heathrow police station, where I was photographed, took me shoes, tie, swab, fingerprints, put in a cell. Slam.
And you're sitting in that cell, you know, you've been one of the biggest stars of British television, arrested under Operation Nutri into, as the public think, paedophiles.
Yeah. And my mind was racing. And I was thinking, what am I going to be accused of? And I went back to all the things I've done over the years and tried to remember all the women. And I've gotten to such a state I started pacing. And I remembered my best friend called Goose from the Special Forces. And I thought, what would he do now? And he would say, you cannot do anything, so do nothing. And I went to sleep. Forced myself to go to sleep. God knows how I slept. The lawyer came. We went into a little room. He gave me a couple of bits of paper saying what these accusations were. So when we went and spoke to the police, quite confident, but I was terrified. And the reason I was terrified, and I noticed very quickly that the person that complained were now not called complainants, they were called victims.
Actually, you never properly clear yourself. Once you're out there...
It didn't leave me undamaged.
Right.
I found it pretty traumatic. And it has affected me. I cannot, at any stage of the proceedings of my life now, be accused of something I haven't done. I hate it, and I'll battle away, even at trivia. Left the milk out. I didn't. I won't now have a conversation with a woman in a room without someone else being there.
I mean, that's quite sad, isn't it?
Not my fault. But I need to protect myself. I've been through the hell. I'm easy to accuse.
Well, you had a very promiscuous life, right? So
Yeah, I did.
I mean, how many women do you think you slept with over the years?
I didn't sleep much.
I mean, from a scale of Dalai Lama, 0, to Bill Wyman, 2,000, where's Jay Davidson?
Well, just phone Bill Wyman and tell him to get his act together.
Do you think you've had periods of your life where you've been a sex addict, genuinely?
No. No, that's never... No, that's just part of the perks of the job, isn't it? No, I'm not a sex addict, no. Mind you, there's lots of stuff. There's porn everywhere. I mean, how can you not be a sex addict? It's on the television. Someone said, go and look on so-and-so channel 614. It's fantastic. I thought, oh, God, all right. So I sat there, and do you know what I saw? It's disgusting. Like a faded grey picture of a fat old bloke stood there with his dick in his hand. And I realised I hadn't switched the television on. I'm sorry.
Over the years, Jim, you've built up a reputation, this will be no surprise to you, in no particular order, of being racist, homophobic, sexist, xenophobic, just about every other bit you could imagine. Do you think you're any of those things?
No, not really. Not too keen on Belgians. But then that doesn't count, does it? This is the black thing, isn't it? It is. That's what racism is about, I think, what people tend to think. Listen, we can all decide we don't like that person there, but I think to generalise people is, you know, not the road to go down. And, of course, you can be accused of all types of things. I was accused of being a paedophile by people who didn't know any of the facts. But listen, don't forget, when I was doing that chalky stuff, it was about an accent.
You couldn't do that on British television today.
No.
But at the time, people...
Well, you wouldn't want to, because no one speaks with a West Indian accent anymore. Have you noticed black guys now don't talk like that, West Indian? But this is an accent that comes from no country. It's not passed from your mother or your father. And you must go home and say to your wife, make a cup of tea, my throat's killing me. I've been talking that. I find that funny. I find that funny, to the way other people talk.
When you were on Hell's Kitchen in 2007, you famously said to fellow contestant Brian Dowling, who's gay, why do shirtlifters pull that same face?
Yeah.
And you were staggered when everyone went, Jim, you can't call gay people shirtlifters.
Yeah, that was a mistake. I made the wrong choice of words, and it just got into a hole. You know, I've got great gay mates. How can you be in this business if you don't have gay mates?
Did it stop you using that phrase?
Yes, it did. Yes,
so you have evolved.
No, I just don't call gay men shirtlifters anymore.
But that's an evolution.
Yeah, I realise that. So I don't use that word since.
You upset Great Yarmouth. You said it was full of overweight people in flip-flops and fat children of all colours and no class.
Yeah, and rubber hammers.
Did you mind that Great Yarmouth rose as one to be furious?
No, they didn't rise as one. The paper rose as one. And it's a great place, and they named the lifeboat after me.
And is it still full of overweight people in flip-flops?
There's overweight people everywhere you go. Have you seen me? Something's happening to me. I think either God or my wife are taking revenge, or I think I'm turning into one of them translucent people.
Transgender.
Yeah. That's it, yeah.
You're not about to tell me you're identifying as a woman, are you?
I've got boobs now. I think I'm an A cup.
See, for all the flack you get, Jim, you know, you're a complex character, and it says a lot about you. You know, for everyone who labels you as this bad guy, that shows to me that underneath it you've got a very good heart.
Well, I suppose if you're going to weigh up the good and the bad about me, this is certainly on the good side. I enjoy our young men and women that are in the armed forces. They're the best in the world. I mean, it's really, really, by miles. I know all the other armed forces. I meet them all over the place. And the Brits are the ones, they're the benchmark that the rest of the world looks up to. And we should be very, very proud of them. And we should look after our veterans.
Well, it's great what you do there, Jim. You were awarded the OBE in 2000, not least because of your work with the troops over the years. You had an unusual choice of people that you took to the palace.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Cameron, my son, Charlie, my son, and Sarah, the daughter, to the palace. But afterwards, the three ex-wives all came to have lunch. Oh, man. That was a nice moment, having them all there and getting the award. Wish my old dad would have seen me in the kilt. Prince of Wales said to me, I've never seen you in a kilt before, Jim. I said, no, sir, I'm wearing it for my father. And he said, is he here? I said, no, sir, he's... And he said, oh, dear. I said, no, he's not dead, sir. He's nicking the lead off the palace roof. I swear to God.
Jim Davidson, thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.